8 a.m., the 24th of March 1945. U.S. 17th Airborne and British 6th Airborne load for the biggest single-day drop of the war. More than 1,500 transports, more than 1,000 gliders, 16,000 paratroopers, 2 divisions planning to land on top of a live front, in daylight, within range of every gun the Germans can drag to the riverbank. No pathfinders, no night concealment, no subtlety. In a chalked C-46 near the middle of the Armada, Captain Joe Merrick, 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 17th Airborne, checks his men's static lines by feel. He's 27, Ohio steelworker before the war. Normandy replacement who missed the earlier jumps and has been waiting to prove he belongs. His map is a mess of pencil and grease pencil, DZ, A, southwest of Hammenkeln, crossroads here, flak belts here and here. His solution to the problem nobody wants to say out loud: times we're landing, feet from guns, already awake. Times is brutally simple. Hit the flak first. In the enemy's side, Oberfeldwebel Oskar Hartung, who spent 1,940 firing at bombers over the Ruhr, mutters, "Unmöglich," impossible. It isn't 3 sticks, or a regiment, or some probing glide. It is times everything, asterisk. He swings the 88's barrel not for altitude, he can't elevate enough, but flat, into the drop lanes, a direct-fire cannon waiting to take cargo gliders as they flare. The flak opens as the first wave crosses the Rhine. The air turns into a metal storm. C-46 seconds punch through ragged black blossoms. Some catch, trail flame. Waco gliders, their tow ropes cut, skate down through Tracer 1 bursts when a flak-veerling walks a line through its nose. Another rides out a crash into a beet field and folds like a tin toy. Sergeant Colin Shaw of Britain's 12th Parachute Battalion, 6th Airborne, watches a Horsa with an anti-tank gun aboard lose a wing and cartwheel in the far field. He can't watch it long. The jump light flicks green. Merrick rises, slaps each man's shoulder, and steps into a world of smoke and tracer. Parachutes flower at 1,200 feet, too high to drop through the flak clean, too low to drift out of the beaten zone. He counts 1, 2, 3, pull his canopy snaps, and he's already scissoring the risers to steer toward a hedgerow where he's drawn a tiny red cross for the 20mm pit he intends to kill. He lands hard, rolls, feels something crack in his ankle, and decides it didn't. The shock on the ground is immediate and two-sided. German platoons, hardened by months of retreat fighting, see white canopies blotting out their sky and think times times in reverse. Fallschirmjäger who've worn the badge since Sicily glance up, curse, and fire. But there are too many canopies. The rhythm of the battlefield breaks. Every 50 meters there's an American or a Brit, and every 50 meters someone is already moving on a gun. The Dyersfurter Wald was supposed to be a screen. In 10 minutes it's a cage with the paratroopers inside it, yes, but also with the guns. On the radio net, British code names crackle, Bellerophon to Hermes, sticks down, contact immediate. On Merrick's throat mic, beacon set, on me. Flak pit 1 priority. The first 5 minutes decide everything, and in those 5 minutes, 16,000 men arrive like a verdict, 0947 hours. The Rhine crossings are alive with smoke columns when Merrick's boots hit mud. He yanks his chute harness free, the silk snagging in thorns. Hears the whip crack of MG 42 seconds along the hedgerow. 2 men from his stick are already down. A third crawls behind a ditch, firing short bursts toward a flicker of muzzle flash. Merrick doesn't wait. He drags his Thompson around and sprints toward the shallow rise that hides the 20mm pit he marked on the map the night before. The flak gun crew sees him too late. They're turned toward the sky, tracking gliders, not the ground. He throws a grenade blind over the lip of the trench explosion, then a scream. He drops in, lands on a German loader with a shovel still in his hands, fires once, twice. The pit goes still. He looks up. His radio man, Corporal Klein, 21, from Cleveland, is already stringing a line from a captured field phone, into the hedgerow. "Command net will be chaos," Klein shouts. "We'll make our own." Merrick nods. He's bleeding from a cut on his cheek he doesn't remember getting. Across the landing zone, the situation is chaos wrapped in discipline. Gliders crash short, skidding through ditches. Jeeps and anti-tank guns spill out still attached by their tow cables. Men fight with knives and carbines while cutting free harnesses. The British 6th Airborne to the north is already moving for Hammonkeln, their red berets visible in bursts between trees. Overhead, the second wave roars in more C-47 seconds, more silk, more bodies tumbling into smoke. Operation Varsity isn't a stealth assault, it's a daylight hammer. German reaction is instinctive and brutal. The 84th Infantry Division, holding Wesel's northern approaches, pulls 2 battalions of grenadiers south to counterattack. Colonel Erich Pott, commanding the 180th Fallschirmjäger Regiment, rallies what's left of his 2nd Battalion near the railway embankment. His men are veterans from Italy, tough, disciplined, furious. He shouts over the din. They land like snow, but snow melts. Counterattack by platoons cut them apart before they find each other. They almost succeed. At 1,015 hours, a German half-track rolls out of a copse 400 yards from Merrick's position, an MG-42 braced on the roof. The paratroopers freeze. Merrick's bazooka team, Sergeant Kearney and Private Owens, are 40 yards left, tangled in brush. "Kearney!" Merrick yells, waving. Kearney nods, crouches, sights, fires. The rocket hits the half-track's hood dead center, blows it into a plume of black smoke. The burning wreck blocks the lane, sealing off the Germans' advance route. In the sky, C-46 seconds still burn. Pilots hold formation through flak so thick it looks solid. A Waco glider carrying a 57mm anti-tank gun lands 100 yards from Merrick's position, shattering a fence and snapping its landing gear. The crew crawls out, shaking, hauls the gun upright, and starts assembling the carriage before the wings stop smoking. One of them, a kid, barely 20, asks, "Where's command post?" Merrick laughs once, hard. "You're standing in it." By 10:30, small battles bloom across a 5-mile stretch of farmland. Paratroopers form circles, fight outward. British paras seize Hammonkellen's bridge with bayonets, then hold it against 3 counterattacks by Fallschirmjäger, armed with Panzerfausts. American pathfinders blow the rail line south of Deersfort. Glider-borne engineers clear mines on the farm tracks. In less than 2 hours, the drop has turned from chaos to cohesion. But the Germans don't break. Armored elements from the 116th Panzer Division Windhund, the Greyhound, have begun moving north from Wesel. 4 Panthers, 6 half-tracks, and a battery of self-propelled 88 seconds cross a back road toward Hammonkeln. Their mission simple: crush the paratroopers before the British 15th Division finishes its bridgehead. Merrick's unit, dug in along the farm road, is the first line in their path. He studies the horizon through binoculars, sees the shimmer of tank hulls in the smoke. He knows the bazookas can't stop a frontal push. The only chance is to choke the armor in the narrow lanes, force them to turn broadside. He looks at the half-collapsed barn beside him, the well shaft, the drainage ditch, calculates angles like an engineer. "Get the satchel charges," he orders. "We'll make a wall." They work fast, setting charges on the barn's timber frame, running wire through the ditch. It's crude but effective. When the lead Panther grinds into view, its tracks clotted with mud, Merrick waits until it's halfway past the barn. Then he hits the plunger. The barn explodes sideways in a cascade of wood and fire, collapsing across the lane and burying the Panther's nose. The shockwave knocks Merrick flat. When he rises, his men are already firing at the following half-tracks. Radio chatter fills the air. Varsity Red calling all units, ground forces crossing. Hold your lines. The Rhine has been breached. The airborne's job is to keep the breach open. At 1,100 hours, from Wesel's ruins, A German radio operator transmits to Army Group H headquarters. Enemy parachute troops occupy all approaches to Hamminkeln. Strength unknown. At least 2 divisions. The reply comes 30 seconds later. Impossible. By noon, it isn't. 16,000 paratroopers are on the east bank of the Rhine, holding ground that yesterday belonged to the Reich. And every German commander, from Wesel to Münster, is staring at his map, realizing what that means. 12 hours. Smoke thickens over Hamminkeln like low fog. The British 6th Airborne is fighting house to house through the market square. Bayonets fixed, Sten guns, coughing short bursts between stone walls. Across the southern fields, Merrick's 513th Parachute Infantry has become a thin green-gray line spread along hedgerows and irrigation ditches. Behind them, glider teams unpack jeeps and 57mm guns from wrecked airframes, laying them out like bones across the mud. The air smells of cordite, diesel, and burning silk. The situation is clear but ugly. The Rhine crossing has succeeded the 15th Scottish Division and 9th U.S. Army armor are now bridging near Wesel, but the airborne troops have to hold open the bridgehead's eastern exits for at least 24 hours. That means standing in open farmland against counterattacks from 2 German divisions, the 84th Infantry and what remains of 116th Panzer Windhund. The paratroopers have light weapons, minimal armor, no resupply yet. Merrick knows what's coming next. At 1,220 hours, the first German tanks appear, 3 Panthers moving abreast down the Lenze road, their hulls almost black with smoke dust. Merrick can feel the vibration through the ground before he can see them. His field phone crackles. "This is Major Jeffords' battalion. Armor sighted west of your sector?" "Affirmative," Merrick replies. 3 tanks, half-tracks in trail. "Delay them. Artillery still crossing the river." "Roger," Merrick says. "Delay with what?" He looks at what he has. 2 bazookas, 4 gammon bombs, and a 57mm gun crew, setting up behind a hedgerow. It isn't much. But the road narrows between 2 farmhouses, perfect killing ground. Merrick waves the crew forward. "Get that gun sighted on the bend. Aim for the lead tank's tracks. We're not killing them. We're stopping them." The first Panther rounds the curve. The gunner fires. The shell hits low, ricochets, but blows the track cleats loose. The Panther slews sideways, its turret grinding as the driver fights to correct. Merrick yells for the bazooka team. They pop up from a drainage ditch, fire at 40 yards. The rocket punches through the rear hull, sparks, and flames spill from the engine deck. The other Panthers open fire, spraying the hedgerows with 75mm HE rounds. Dirt erupts. The second tank lurches forward and stalls. Merrick's men have shot the ground line from the field telephone, but they don't need orders now. They're moving by instinct, firing, flanking, dragging ammo boxes from dead gliders. The Germans keep pushing. 2 half-tracks unload grenadiers into the ditches. For 15 minutes, it's a running gunfight at ranges under 30 yards. Private Owens, the same man who fired the bazooka that morning, is hit through the shoulder but keeps loading rockets. The second bazooka misfires, backblast scorching the mud. Merrick grabs a gammon bomb, a cloth sack of explosive with a sticky head, and crawls forward. He waits until the second Panther's turret swings past, then throws. The bomb sticks, explodes, lifts the tank's rear deck off like a lid. When the smoke clears, the lane is clogged with wrecks. The Panthers burn, black smoke towering. German infantry retreat to the next hedge line. The 57mm gun crew is down to their last 2 shells. Merrick walks the line, slaps shoulders, counts heads. 21 men left in his platoon. 47 when they jumped. At 1,300 hours, the sky changes again, shadows crossing the fields, the deep thunder of engines. Merrick's men look up and freeze. Another wave. But these aren't transports. Their resupply. C-47 seconds from 438th Troop Carrier Group, dropping bundles of ammunition, water, and morphine. Parachutes of red, yellow, and green drift down through the haze. One bundle lands 50 yards away. Merrick runs, cuts it open. Bandoliers, grenades, and 2 radios. He grins for the first time since dawn. To the north, British 6th Airborne has taken Hammond-Kellen's rail bridge intact. German defenders blew only the western span, leaving the eastern abutment usable for engineers. Brigadier Hill's men clear the last resistance in the town square at 1,330. They send the code phrase back to Montgomery's headquarters. Coup de main, successful. Bridge, secure. The Rhine bridgehead is sealed. But in the woods east of Hammond-Keln, new trouble brews. Scouts report elements of the 7th Fallschirmjäger Division moving up from Haltern, veteran paratroopers, ironically enough, sent to annihilate the Allied ones. Their commander, Major Rudolf Witzig, the man who led the assault on Fort Eben Emael in 1940, vows to retake the ground before nightfall. His men are elite, ruthless, and desperate. They march with Panzerfaust slung like walking sticks. Merrick hears the report and exhales slowly. Paratroopers, fighting paratroopers, he mutters. Hell of a symmetry. He orders his remaining squads to reposition along the tree line, dig in, and prepare. They scrounge extra ammo, set trip flares, rewire captured mines. No one speaks. At 1,445 hours, German mortars begin thumping. Shells walk down the hedgerow in neat, practiced rhythm. Then shapes appear, gray smudges in the trees, moving fast. Fallschirmjäger in smocks and jump boots, ghosts of the Reich's first victories. They're shouting, firing from the hip, closing distance like it's still 1,940. Merrick's men wait until they're inside 50 yards, then open up. The first wave collapses. The second finds cover and fights back. The forest fight lasts an hour. It's intimate, savage, confused. Grenades bounce off tree trunks, smoke grenades mix with fog, and both sides use the same words: Fallschirmjäger, hand grenade, sanitator. Merrick loses 2 more men to shrapnel. But the Germans lose more. By 1600, Witzig's battalion breaks off, leaving bodies and broken Panzerfausts in the mud. Merrick leans against a tree, his ears ringing, his mouth tasting of cordite and blood. The sun is setting behind the smoke. He looks west, where the horizon flickers with the artillery flashes of the Rhine bridgehead. Reinforcements are crossing. Armor, infantry, endless columns. The river that was supposed to stop the Allies is now behind them. At 1,700 hours, British dispatch riders reach his position, mud up to their knees. Orders from Corps, one says, handing him a crumpled message form. Merrick reads it aloud. Varsity holding sectors intact. Ground forces linked. Mission complete. He stares at the words for a long moment. Complete. But across the field, the Panthers still burn, and the dead still lie where they fell. The sound of gunfire hasn't stopped, not completely. The war isn't done. Not yet. Still, somewhere deep in Germany, teleprinters click out a message to Oberkommando West. Enemy airborne forces east of Rhine. Estimated strength, 16,000. All attempts to dislodge unsuccessful. For the first time, the German General Staff no longer doubts the obvious. The river line is gone. The Reich's western front has collapsed. And for the men in the mud outside Hammond-Keln, the impossible crossing the Rhine by air in daylight has become a fact carved into history. 1,800 hours. The light over the Rhine fades into a red haze. Smoke drifts low, curling through the hedgerows where the dead of both sides lie tangled in parachute silk and shell craters. The thunder of artillery is moving east now. British 11th Armored Division has crossed the bridges at Wesel, rolling toward Bocholt. Operation Varsity, the most massive airborne assault ever conducted in a single day, has succeeded. But success is a word for maps. For the men on the ground, the night ahead is the hardest part. Captain Joe Merrick walks his perimeter one more time. His platoon, 20 men left from 47, are dug into the edge of a beet field east of Hammenkeln. The wreck of a Waco glider lies half buried nearby, its wooden ribs glowing faintly from the last light. The air stinks of cordite, oil, and the faint sweetness of decay. Somewhere down the line, a man hums under his breath, a tune from home. It stops when the next mortar round lands 200 yards short. "Night counterattack's coming," Merrick says quietly to his sergeant. "They'll try one more before they pull back." He's right. On the German side, Major Witzig, his Fallschirmjäger mauled and exhausted, has pulled together every stray gunner, driver, and clerk he can find. Reinforcements from the 84th Infantry's Artillery Regiment are trickling in with horse-drawn 75mm guns. And behind them, in Wesel's ruins, a handful of tanks from Windhund Division idle, engines ticking in the dark. The German High Command has ordered them to retake Hammenkeln at all costs. The bridges to the Rhine must be destroyed, or the war on the Western Front is lost for good. At 1910, the first German shells land on the crossroads. Merrick ducks instinctively, soil raining down over his helmet. His men fire red flares, signal for illumination. The British artillery on the far bank answers instantly. White phosphorus rounds burst above the field, washing everything in silver light. The Germans come out of the glow rows of shadowed figures, some still in Luftwaffe coveralls, others in paratrooper smocks, shouting and firing as they advance. Merrick's men hold their fire until the shapes are inside 100 yards, then unleash everything they have. The hedgerow becomes a wall of flame. Tracer rounds tear through the fog. The first German wave shatters. The second presses forward over their bodies. One of Merrick's machine gunners jams his barrel from overheating. Another man crawls to replace him before the next burst. It's ugly, blind fighting, grenades, shouting, bayonets. At one point, Merrick fires his Thompson point blank into a man who's already inside the line, their helmets colliding. Then silence brief. Shivering silence, broken only by the hiss of burning grass. The attack stops as suddenly as it began. When Merrick looks up, the field ahead is empty except for smoke and the flicker of muzzle flashes retreating into the trees. By midnight, the battle has shrunk to scattered gunfire. British paras in Hammenkeln report the same. Probing attacks, then nothing. The Germans are gone, retreating northeast toward Borken, leaving behind burned trucks and shattered mortars. The next morning, 25 March, the sky clears. The first sun in 2 days shows the Rhine glinting like a blade. Columns of armor and infantry stream over Bailey bridges laid through the night. The 9th U.S. Army, Montgomery's 21st Army Group, Patton's 3rd Army, farther south everyone is across. The river that defined Germany's western defense is behind them now. In the village, paratroopers walk among wrecked flak guns and shattered wagons. The cost is enormous. The 17th Airborne lost 1,300 men killed and wounded. The British 6th lost nearly as many. Over 300 gliders destroyed, 50 transports shot down. But the objective is achieved. Wesel taken, bridges held. German resistance shattered. Merrick sits on an ammo crate near the crossroads, his hands raw and blistered. A British officer stops to speak, Major John Howard, veteran of Pegasus Bridge. "You Yanks jumped clean into hell yesterday," Howard says quietly. "I've seen brave drops before, but nothing like that." Merrick shrugs. "We didn't have a choice." Down the road, a column of German prisoners shuffles past under guard. Some still wear their jump wings, others the tattered insignia of Luftwaffe flak regiments. They look stunned, hollow-eyed, as though the ground has betrayed them. One older sergeant glances at the mass of parachutes hanging in the hedges, mutters in disbelief. 16,000? 16,000? He shakes his head. It cannot be, but it is. 16,000 paratroopers landed east of the Rhine, in one day, half American, half British, under full daylight, against prepared defenses, and won. The Germans had seen 100 airborne drops since 1940, but never like this. Never so vast, so deliberate, so final. At noon, Merrick's radio crackles. Message from Corps. All airborne units relieved by ground forces. Withdraw west for extraction. He looks east one last time, toward the smoke where the Reich once seemed endless. So, that's it, he says softly. For the Germans, it is. That night, Model's Army Group B begins a general retreat toward the Ruhr. The Rhine line is broken from Wesel to Remagen. Every division left on the west bank is cut off. The Third Reich's Western Army, 325,000 men, has no escape. Operation Varsity didn't just open a bridgehead. It slammed the last door on Germany's hopes for defense. On 26 March, 2 days after the drop, the men of the 513th march back across the Rhine bridges they helped secure. Tanks roll past them toward the heart of Germany, their engines rumbling like the future. The paratroopers' uniforms are caked with mud and blood and Rhine dust. Merrick pauses halfway across the span, looking down at the water glittering in the sun. Below him, barges carry prisoners west. Above, C-47 seconds circle in lazy loops, hauling the wounded. Across the river, the banners of the British 15th and U.S. 17th Airborne flutter side by side. A week later, Wehrmacht headquarters will issue the report that sums it up in one line. The enemy airborne landing east of the Rhine achieved total surprise and rendered organized defense impossible. It's the bureaucratic way of saying what every German soldier in that sector already knows. When 16,000 paratroopers dropped out of the morning sky, the war for Germany was already over, it just didn't realize it yet. March 26, 1945. The Rhine crossings are wide open. What began as a narrow bridgehead near Wesel is now a highway of armor, trucks, ambulances, and prisoners flowing east. Operation Varsity, the last and largest airborne assault of the war, has done more than succeed. It has detonated the Western Front. At 0600 hours, the first tanks of the British Guards Armored Division thunder through Hammenkeln, their tracks grinding over the same roads where Merrick's paratroopers fought off Panthers 48 hours earlier. Behind them comes the 15th Scottish Infantry, columns of weary men in greatcoats trudging through the smoke. The village smells of diesel and spent gunpowder. The bodies have been cleared, but the wreckage remains. Glider frames splintered like ribs, parachutes tangled in telephone wires, empty shell casings ankle-deep in the ditches. Merrick stands by what's left of the crossroads where his platoon made its stand. The barn that stopped the Panthers is a pile of ash. His men, what's left of them, are sleeping in foxholes or scrounging coffee from a field kitchen that finally made it across the river. The battalion has been ordered to pull back for rest and refit. No one believes they'll rest. They're too wired, too hollow, too changed. A jeep rolls up the lane, splattering mud. Colonel Edson Raff, commander of the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment and one of the most experienced airborne officers in Europe, steps out, pipe clenched in his teeth. He glances around the field. So this is where they stopped the armor? Yes, sir, Merrick answers. 2 bazookas, 1 gun, and a barn. Raff nods, expression unreadable. You cost the Germans an entire panzer company. You bought the Rhine. Well done. For Merrick, the words don't feel like victory. He's been awake for nearly 60 hours. Every sound still sounds like incoming fire. But when he looks at the horizon, flat farmland stretching toward Münster, he realizes something. There's no more front. The enemy isn't holding lines anymore. They're falling apart. Across the sector, German formations are dissolving into fragments. The 84th Infantry Division has lost its commander. The remnants of the 116th Panzer Division are retreating toward the Lippe River without orders. Railway lines east of Wesel are jammed with broken guns and burning vehicles. Civilians wander the roads carrying white flags and children. At 0900 hours, Merrick's platoon joins the withdrawal west. They march past thousands of captured Germans, Fallschirmjäger, Volkssturm, flak gunners, all herded by British MPs toward makeshift cages on the Rhine's west bank. The prisoners stare at the Americans in disbelief. One, an officer with a paratrooper's badge on his tunic, calls out in accented English, "Where are the rest of you? There cannot have been so many." Merrick glances at him, too tired to answer. Then he gestures at the endless stream of trucks, tanks, and infantry pouring east across the bridges. "All of us," he says. That's how many. By noon, the field hospitals near Wesel are overwhelmed. Airborne casualties from both divisions arrive in endless waves: burned glider pilots, men with shattered legs from hard landings, others with bandaged eyes from phosphorus burns. Army doctors work on stretchers laid out in the mud. Among them, British and American medics share morphine and cigarettes, swapping stories in exhaustion. A young British surgeon named Captain Leonard Bell writes later, "We expected to treat men from a failed operation. Instead, we treated the men who ended the war. They were broken, but victorious." Meanwhile, German radio traffic, what's left of it, is frantic. Army Group H reports enemy airborne troops linking with mechanized elements, total collapse imminent. In Berlin, Hitler refuses to believe the reports. No major airborne operation could have succeeded under daylight, he snarls, insisting the accounts are enemy exaggerations. It takes 2 days for him to learn that Field Marshal Model's entire army group is encircled in the Ruhr. Back at Hammenkelln, Merrick sits with his surviving men. The sergeant, Kearney, smokes in silence, staring at a ruined glider. "They said there were 16,000 of us," he mutters. "Didn't feel like that many." Merrick smiles faintly. To them, it did, and it had. For the Germans who watched the sky fill with parachutes that morning, the sight looked less like a military assault and more like the end of the world. Prisoners later called it Fallschirmhölle, the paratrooper hell. For every square kilometer of landing zone, over 100 paratroopers dropped in under fire, hitting trenches, orchards, ditches, even the roofs of houses. It was war compressed into minutes, chaos turned deliberate. At dusk, the 17th Airborne forms up for relief. Trucks grind up the road to take them west. The men climb aboard, silent, dazed. Merrick looks back at the horizon. Columns of British Shermans and Cromwells are already moving east, their exhaust trails merging with the smoke. Overhead, the air is clear again, no flak, no C-47 seconds, just gulls wheeling over the Rhine. As the trucks roll, someone in the back starts humming, "I'll Be Seeing You."